Today's question is, how do I find inspiration and motivation in my spiritual life? YouTube? Audible? No, seriously, consuming just tons of interpretations of spirituality. It's awesome. I love that we live in a time where we have so much information available to us. And so many people with all these different spiritual experiences just sharing theirs that we can access at any given time. I think that's really, really friggin' cool. It makes me feel good. It makes me feel good to listen to that kind of stuff. And I feel like everybody has some little new take on what at its core, spirituality, I feel like, is very simple. And you can just expand upon it for hours. And everybody just has something new to say about it because their experience is uniquely their own. I love personal essays in general, and spiritual personal essays just get me revved up, man. And yeah, inspiration's super important. I find I get into my little routine or my locked-in ideas, which is very, very counterproductive to living a spiritual life. A lot of the time, I find I get into spiritual routine to the point where I'm meditating, but it's not really wholehearted meditating, or I'm contemplating, but I'm not actually trying to find any answer, or I'm doing these mindfulness practices, but they're just because I'm trying to feel better, and that trying really hard to feel better, ironically, can make you feel worse sometimes because you're straining too hard. And sometimes I just need to let go of the wheels and just listen to somebody else. Just sit down and honestly listen. The times when I take the biggest inspiration from anybody is when I was actually sincerely listening to them, which can be very difficult these days, as I'm sure everybody knows. An authentic state of listening is what allows that inspiration to actually come in the first place. I have to always remember, though, that listening to somebody's spiritual talk is not the same as me going out into my own experience. It's very, very important, but it isn't a substitute for it. It isn't a substitute for me continuing my own practices that get me there in the first place. You can want it to be. You can be. I mean, I've definitely thought in the past, if I just listen to a bajillion audiobooks about spirituality, then one day, the listening will just do all that to me, to the, it'll give me that person's full experience. It will be the same thing. And that isn't ever going to be the case. But there's never going to be anything wrong with just having that around. If for no other reason, I mean, what you listen to gets ingrained in you. And I've learned that through personal experimentation with affirmations. What you choose to consume, your thought information intake, it really does point you in the right direction. The only thing is that it's like when you ever play a game where you're blindfolded and somebody spins you around and then just sets you off in some direction. It's like they spin you around and then they stop you somewhere, but then you have to choose to go. That's how it is. It orients you in the right direction, but then you have to make the choice to actually go in that direction that you are facing. And sometimes that activation energy, as they call it, is very, very difficult to summon. Sometimes you don't even want it. And that's another thing, is that, I have other interests besides spirituality, as I'm starting to realize by confining myself to the spirituality thing for this month is awesome. And I'm thinking about all these other topics of videos that I want to discuss. I have a lot of other interests, and so sometimes spirituality does take a backseat for a while I extra focus on some other aspects of my life that I want to improve. But I always want spirituality somewhere around there. It's like, even if I'm dedicating myself to, I don't know, job success, it's like I want it to be a spiritual pursuit of job success. Intertwining the spirituality with other things that you just have to do to be a human being. That definitely requires a lot of inspiration, I will say. Setting little micro habits, like maybe just reading a page out of a spirituality book every once in a while, that can be helpful. And sometimes even if you just read that one little sentence, that one little proverb that rings well with you, it can be more impactful than reading like a couple chapters that you sort of sleepwalked through. But yeah, it can be more impactful because, you know, you're not drowning yourself in all this information. If you have a one sentence to read, that one sentence is going to stick out much stronger, you know. But yeah, spirituality, inspiration is everything. I mean, inspiration to do anything has always been everything to me. I want to do things because I've seen other people do things. It's a wonderful impetus to self-better that just gets passed from generation to generation and person to person. And I love that several generations after me will have so many more words to go off of and be, as Louis Armstrong said, you know, they'll learn much more than I'll ever know.